Hey guys, tonight we're slipping back in time to a place where the mornings were dark, the mountains breathed fog, and the world's favorite drink was just beginning its journey. You're not at a cafe, and no, there's no espresso machine humming in the background. Instead, you're in a cold highland hut in ancient Ethiopia, wrapped in woven cloth, and the only thing separating you from the crisp mountain air is a thin wall of mud and straw. Your breath hangs visible in the shadows. The hearth has long gone cold, and the stones beneath your feet are unforgiving. You reach for the edge of a sheepskin cloak draped nearby, rubbing the sleep from your eyes as a faint breeze sneaks through the reed-matted roof. You already know the drill. Coffee isn't just a drink here. It's the thing that makes the rest of the morning possible, maybe even survivable. And it starts long before the sun decides to join the party. Outside, the air is damp and almost silent, almost. A rooster calls somewhere in the distance, off-key and unapologetic. A dog sniffs the ground lazily, its ears twitching. And you're on a mission. Because if you want that sacred first sip, you'll need to work for it. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, post your location and local time down in the comments. Let's see who else is out there wandering the ancient past with us. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You shuffle toward the hut's wooden door, your fingers brushing its worn surface. The latch creaks open, not a scream, just a tired sigh, and you're met with the chill of pre-dawn Ethiopia. This is the highlands, after all, where altitude kisses the stars and mornings forget they're supposed to be warm. Your breath fogs out again as you step barefoot onto the cool earth, feeling tiny pebbles nudge at your soles like old acquaintances. You're not the only one awake, not exactly. There are others like you, scattered across this rugged slope, quietly rising before the light. Most huts still sit in shadow, their shapes little more than ghostly outlines against the indigo sky. A faint ember here, a rustle of woven cloth there. Everyone moves slowly, as if afraid to startle the morning. You pass the neighbor's home and catch a glimpse of movement, just a pair of eyes reflecting firelight, watching you without malice, without urgency. You nod. They nod. That's enough for now. You reach your tiny storage hut, really more of a lean-to beside your living space. Inside, your hands know where to go even in the dark. They find a tightly woven basket suspended by leather cords from the roof beam, safe from mice and damp. It sways gently as you tug it free, and inside, nestled like secrets, are the coffee cherries, still unroasted, still gleaming with a fine morning dew. Red like berries, firm in the fingers, they don't look like something that would change the world. But they will. The practice of drinking coffee in Ethiopia dates back centuries, maybe even longer. No one really agrees. Historians still argue whether its origin was divine accident or clever observation. You've heard the tale a dozen times. A goat herd named Kaldi, puzzled by his overly energetic goats, finds them nibbling these berries and tries them himself. Cue the euphoric dance, the buzzing heart, the accidental invention of civilization's favorite ritual. Romantic, sure, but also suspiciously tidy, don't you think? Still, whether Kaldi was real or just a folkloric mascot, what matters now is the feel of the cherries in your hands. You carry them back to your main fire pit, the cool dirt familiar beneath your toes, the scent of early morning smoke just beginning to bloom. The sky remains stubbornly dark, painted in layers of purple and ash, but the mountains seem to glow faintly, like old bones catching starlight. You squat beside the fire ring and begin building your flame, slow and practiced. A few dry twigs, a curl of bark, a deliberate strike of flint. Sparks leap, smoke yawns. The fire stirs like a sleepy elder, unhurried but inevitable. It's funny, coffee may be the thing that keeps people awake now, but in its earliest form it was about comfort, not productivity. It didn't exist to get you to your shift on time. It was ritual, warmth, community. And right now, in the quiet hush, before sunrise, it feels like the most sacred thing you could do, brew something alive out of the cold. You set the cherries aside, letting them rest in the basket's curve. They'll need to be husked and roasted soon, but for now the fire's your first priority. Your fingers go to the kindling, teasing it into a glow, and as smoke begins to curl upward in steady ribbons, you let yourself pause, breathe, listen. There's something odd about this moment, how something as small as a flame can push back so much dark. How it makes the world just a little softer, a little more manageable, even if you know deep down that the day will bring mud, labor, bartering, and the occasional stubborn goat who's convinced the roof is a better pasture. But right now, it's just you, a woven basket of coffee fruit, and the whispering hush of highland wind sliding between the hills. The first light hasn't cracked the horizon yet. The day hasn't begun, but your story has. You step away from the fire for just a moment, stretching your arms with a groan that escapes your lips before you even mean to let it out. It's the kind of groan that belongs to every tired person since time began, the kind of sound that says, "Really? Already?" But there's no point in resisting. The village is stirring and you're part of it. Like a reluctant ember pulled back into flame, your body begins to move. You walk the short path that leads past the chicken coop, though calling it a coop is generous. It's more of a fenced mess of sticks and woven grass, barely keeping the birds from launching their revolution. One of them squawks at you like you owe it money. You ignore the poultry politics and keep walking, your eyes scanning the smoky dawn. Other villagers have begun to rise. A thin stream of smoke leaks from your neighbor's chimney. An old woman named Mesere, who insists on making her coffee first, before anything else, even before she speaks. You've made the mistake of greeting her too early once. Never again. You nod silently toward her hut as a thin figure flits by, carrying a clay water jar, balanced expertly on a shoulder, with one hand free to shoo away a dog that's far too interested in breakfast negotiations. Everything is quiet, but not still. It's that in-between hush where footsteps sound louder than they should, and you can hear people breathing if they're close enough. The earth itself feels like it's holding its breath, just for a little longer before the sun arrives and declares the daily chaos open for business. You return to your fire and kneel beside it, pulling the woven basket of coffee cherries close. With practiced fingers, you begin to sort. Some cherries are bright red, plump and firm, perfect. Others have dark spots or feel too soft. Those you toss aside with gentle judgment. Every household has its own opinion on how selective you should be. Historians still argue whether ancient Ethiopian communities had fixed standards for coffee selection, or whether it was more of a good enough is good enough situation. You take your time. The sorting is as much meditation as it is necessity. And you can't help but think this isn't just about making coffee, It's about how the village moves in rhythm. One person starts a fire, another starts singing softly while working, someone else sharpens a knife, another gathers herbs. You're all part of a web, and no one really has to say anything for things to flow. A few kids dash by, barefoot and energetic in the way only early morning children can be. One of them stops just long enough to make a face at you, cheeks puffed, eyes wide, tongue out. You respond with an exaggerated gasp and toss a pebble playfully in their direction. They squeal with laughter and disappear behind a hut. You go back to your work. The coffee cherries make a soft pop as you press them between your fingers to squeeze out the beans. 2 small greenish seeds slide into your palm, slick and sticky. You drop them into a shallow clay bowl and reach for another cherry. Press, pop, slide, repeat. You fall into rhythm easily. There's a kind of intimacy in doing this by hand, knowing each bean before it's roasted, before it becomes bitter or fragrant, before anyone takes a sip and sighs. Some of the elders believe this connection matters, that the coffee remembers the hands that touched it, that a distracted or hurried hand makes a bad cup. You're not sure you believe that, but hey, your best batch was also your slowest. Behind you, a low bleating sound floats on the wind, a goat, probably chewing on something it shouldn't. Again, you sigh, but this morning, that goat can wait. You're still in the quiet part of the day, and once it's gone, it's gone. You'll miss it more than you'd ever admit. You finish pulping the cherries and rise with a quiet grunt, your knees clicking just loud enough to make you frown. A few steps take you to the flat, grinding stone, half buried in the earth like a sleeping ancestor. You drop the wet beans onto its surface and grab the upper stone, smooth, round, heavy. Your muscles remember the motion before your brain does, a slow, circular grind, not too fast. Let the stone do the work. The squishing sound is not elegant. Wet beans don't grind easily, they smear, they fight. But slowly, surely the texture changes beneath your hands, gritty, pasty, greenish-grey. You keep going, humming an old tune that you barely remember learning. Something about dawn and rain, and the time a hyena snuck into the village and stole a cooking pot. The song makes no sense, but it fits. And then, there it is. The village exhale. Someone starts pounding maize in the distance, and the sound echoes across the hills like a drumbeat. A rooster crows again, this time with more confidence. The wind shifts, bringing with it the scent of wood smoke, dust, and the faintest hint of livestock. You look up. The sky is beginning to fade from navy to bruised blue. No sun yet, but soon. You carry your bowl of mashed coffee pulp back to the fire, and now it's time to start thinking about roasting. Not in a pan, not in a fancy oven, just a clay disc, maybe cracked, maybe chipped, set gently above the flame. You'll use a stick, or maybe an old spoon carved from horn to stir. You have no timer, no thermometer, just your nose. And when the scent hits just right, when it smells like morning, like warmth, like something you could fall into, you'll know you've done it right. But not yet. First, you sit for a moment beside the fire, feeling its warmth soak into your skin. You flex your fingers and watch the embers shift. No rush. The day hasn't started yet, and you've still got coffee to make. You lean forward over the fire and place the flat clay disc, dark with age and ash, right on the stones where the flame dances hottest. It rocks slightly, uneven from years of use, but it holds. In the bowl, your damp mash of crushed beans waits patiently. Roasting raw coffee is an art, a quiet one. The kind that doesn't involve recipes or timers, just instinct, repetition, and smoke in your eyes. You scoop a handful of the ground pulp and spread it thin across the warm clay. It sizzles quietly, not dramatically. There's no pan to contain the sound, no lid to trap steam. Just the soft hiss of transformation, wet giving way to dry, green turning brown, the oils beginning to unlock like secrets teased from a shell. You stir gently with a stick that's been shaved smooth at one end. The smell rises slowly. First it's earthy, a little sour. Then something changes. Something richer peeks through, nutty, warm, almost chocolatey if you stretch your imagination far enough. The villagers say that's when the coffee's soul stirs. You just call it the good part. You inhale deeply, letting the smoke drift up into your hair, your clothes, your bones. Coffee will cling to you the rest of the day, and that's perfectly fine. Behind you, the village is waking up, louder now. Pots clang. A child cries briefly. A man coughs the kind of cough that sounds like he wrestled a lion in his sleep. You smile and go back to stirring. The beans darken, not all of them evenly, that's fine. This isn't cafe-grade precision. It's ritual, not retail. And besides, the uneven roasts add personality, or so Mesere claims. As you work, you notice the edge of the clay plate glowing orange. It's getting hot, fast. You scoop the browning mash into a smaller bowl to cool before the line between roasted and charred disappears completely. No one wants bitter coffee unless they've had a truly awful week. And even then there's a line. You spread the warm beans out, letting the morning air begin to cool them, though the sky still hasn't shed its early blue. You rub some of the roasted pieces between your fingers, watching them flake, watching the color deepen. They're dry now, ready. This is when the smell gets you, not just the roasting. That's already past. This is the asterisk after, the linger, like the way bread smells best after. You've taken it out of the oven. This is what wakes the village, and not just people, animals too. A goat snorts behind you. A dog pads closer and sits like it belongs here. You glance at it. It glances back. Fair enough. You pull the grinding stones towards you again, this time for the roasted batch. These are drier, harder, and louder. The stones scrape and sing, and the scent bursts up with each turn. You get into rhythm. Your shoulder warms, your arms remember. Circles. Press circles again, not too fast, not too slow. Let the beans speak. Some villagers roast and brew with the husk still on. Others remove it after roasting. There's no clear agreement. Historians still argue whether the earliest Ethiopian coffee was always filtered, or if it was more like a gritty stew of water, spice, and floating bits. You've had both. You prefer the clean version, but hey, grit builds character. Eventually, you have a small pile of roasted ground coffee, not powdery, more coarse, pebbly, like sand from a mountain stream. You run your fingers through it, letting the texture slip through. This isn't just coffee, it's everything: conversation, comfort, medicine, mystery. You think about that as you prepare the next step. The jebena waits nearby. A blackened clay pot shaped like a teardrop with a long bird-like spout and a thick neck. It's the kind of pot that looks like it belongs in a museum, but here it's just Tuesday. You fill it with water from the goatskin pouch and place it into the embers nestled right between two glowing logs. No metal stand, no filter, just fire and earth. The jebena takes its time. It always does. You don't rush a jebena shot. The water begins to shift, making tiny popping noises at first, like it's stretching after a long sleep. You measure the coffee by feel, scooping in just enough to cloud the water but not overwhelm it. Some add more, some less. There's no consensus. Some even toss in dried twigs or leaves. Meserate once swore that adding a scrap of dried rue leaf could ward off nightmares. You're not sure about nightmares, but it does taste sharp, like the memory of something ancient and unresolved. You sit back as the jebena warms and the scent deepens. The wind changes again, your fire crackles. A few villagers wander past, nodding in approval as the smell reaches them. One old man hums a tune, maybe the same one you were humming earlier, maybe something older. He doesn't stop walking. He doesn't need to. He knows the coffee will find him soon enough. Steam curls from the narrow neck of the pot, and your heart does that silly flutter it always does when it's almost ready. You lean forward and blow gently into the jebena, coaxing the last bubbles upward. This part is delicate. If it boils over, it's ruined. If it doesn't brew long enough, it's weak. And if it spills into the fire, well, you'll be hearing about that for weeks. You pull it from the coals just in time, cradling it in a cloth-wrapped hand. The jebena is hot, humming with energy. It doesn't whistle or sing, it just is. Heavy, dark, and full of ancient promise. You place it carefully beside the fire, letting it settle, letting the grounds drift downward. The first brew is never rushed. You tilt your head, listening, not for the boil, but for the silence that follows it. That soft hush, that quiet anticipation, like the air is waiting. You are too. You sit still for a moment, hands on your knees, the jebena resting like a sacred relic beside the fire. The ground beneath you is warm now, soot-smudged but welcoming in a way that only morning earth can be. The smell that rises from the clay pot is no longer just coffee, it's invitation, memory, maybe even a little bit of magic. And for a brief, glowing second, you feel like the richest person in the world. You reach over, grip the narrow neck, and gently tilt the jebena forward. The coffee flows slowly through the spout, thick, dark, and steaming, into a small clay cup the color of sun-baked mud. You don't pour much, just enough, just to taste, but it's not for you. You stand and walk a few paces toward the edge of your hut, toward a flat patch of earth cleared of pebbles and thorns. You kneel and tip the cup, letting the first pour of coffee soak into the soil. The steam rises like incense, a gift for the spirits. Old tradition, very old. Some say it keeps the ancestors happy. Others claim it wards off wild animals, especially hyenas, who apparently hate coffee, though no one's brave, or foolish, enough to test that theory. Historians still argue whether this early libation was part of spiritual ritual, agricultural custom, or just good manners toward the invisible. You pour in silence. There's no prayer spoken aloud, just the slow spill of dark liquid onto dirt and the breath of fire behind you. For a moment the whole village feels quieter, like it too is paying its respects. Then you return to your fire and prepare a cup for yourself. The clay is warm in your hands. You hold it near your chest, feeling its heat seep through your palms. The rim is rough in a way that feels honest, like something made by a friend who doesn't bother sanding the edges. You take the first sip. It's strong. Not bitter exactly, more like bold, unapologetic. There's smoke in it, yes, and something vaguely green like memory of a plant. A tingle of spice from the twig you added. Maybe it was rue, maybe not. The flavor unfolds as you drink, like a story told in reverse, not refined, not smooth, but real, alive. It hits the back of your throat and travels down, warming your chest like a second fire. You close your eyes for a moment. No alarms, no emails, no list of chores, just you and this cup and the crackling hush of firelight. Across the clearing, someone else is doing the same. You can see their silhouette, cup raised, breath fogging the air above it. Two others sit by their hut, a boy and his grandmother, sharing a small batch between them. This isn't a solo activity, it never was. Coffee is a companion, even when you drink it alone. You pour another cup and sip again, slower this time. This one's for the moment, not the ritual, just the now. The birds have started, soft chirps at first, hesitant and scattered, then bolder. One calls sharply from a tree just above your hut, as if reminding you not to fall back asleep. Rude. You stretch your legs out and lean back on your elbows, careful not to spill. The sky is softening from blue to the faintest lavender, and the hills around you are beginning to cast shadows that weren't there minutes ago. The sun hasn't crested yet, but it's thinking about it. You can feel the promise of it behind the mountains. The dog from earlier creeps closer, sniffing at the ground near your feet. You glance down, it looks at you, then at the cup, then back at you. Nice try, you mutter, and it flops down in defeat, tail giving a few lazy thumps against the dirt. You think of the first time you ever drank coffee. You were probably too young. You gagged a little, made a face, swore off it. Then tried again a week later because you didn't want to seem weak in front of the others. That time it was better. And by the third time you were hooked, not just on the taste, but the ritual, the waiting, the warmth. Coffee here isn't consumed, it's shared. Not just the drink, but the time around it. The gossip, the prayers, the teasing, the silence. It's all part of the flavor. And even now, in the hush before sunrise, you feel connected to everyone else brewing quietly in the dark. You could visit any hut, knock gently, and be welcomed in with a cup, no questions asked. That's the rule, that's the culture. You sip again. The fire has calmed to a glow now, no more dancing flames, just red-orange coals that breathe in and out. You poke them with a stick, shifting their bones slightly, keeping the heat alive. Not because you need it anymore, but because you're not quite ready to let go of the moment. In the distance, a voice calls out, soft, melodic. Someone's singing while they grind. It's not a performance, it's just part of the work. A daily hymn passed down through muscle memory. You hum along quietly, not because you know the words, you don't, but because the melody feels like it belongs in your chest. You finish your cup, set it down, look up. The stars are starting to disappear, fading one by one like shy children at the end of a party. You pick up the jebena again, still warm, and pour a second cup, not for you this time. Someone will wander by, someone always does. And the first thing they'll say isn't good morning, it's is it ready? Yes. Yes, it is. You cradle the second cup in your palms, letting the warmth soak into your skin again. It's amazing how quickly the body begins to expect this comfort. One cup, and already you're greedy for more. But this one isn't for you. You set it on a low stool near the fire, right where a passerby would see it, an unspoken invitation. And sure enough, before long, someone accepts. Footsteps crunch the dirt softly behind you. You don't even turn. You already know who it is. Did you add roux again? A voice asks, low and slightly raspy with sleep. It's Dawit. He always shows up around this time, always tries to guess your recipe, always guesses wrong. Maybe, you say, not looking up. Maybe it's just ash and goat tears. He chuckles and eases himself down onto the stool like a man twice his age, which is impressive since he's only 30. His cup is halfway to his lips before he says another word. Then he sips and exhales slowly. He says, definitely goat tears. The two of you sit in easy silence. That's how it goes. There's no rush to fill the morning with words. Just being here, breathing the same warm air and watching the fire twitch. This is enough. The coffee does the talking. Behind you, the village hum picks up again. A baby fusses. Someone hammers something, maybe repairing a fence. Somewhere near the edge of the village, a pair of donkeys begins to argue loudly about who gets to stand in the shade, even though there is no shade yet. You smile and sip your third cup, which you hadn't intended to pour, but here we are. Darwit shifts slightly and points with his chin toward the fire. You ever wonder how long we've been doing this? You raise an eyebrow. Drinking coffee? No, he says, waking up before the sun to roast things and spill libations and hum goat-based hymns. You snort. At least 6 generations, maybe more. Some people say coffee started here. Some say it was Yemen, or both. Historians still argue. Darwit grins. Historians always argue, it's their job. And he's not wrong. The debate over coffee's origins is as old as the beans themselves. Was it first brewed in Ethiopia, or was it just chewed here and properly brewed across the Red Sea? Did monks invent it to stay awake during prayer, or did herders just want their goats to stop partying all night? No one agrees. No one needs to. The result is the same. This moment, here and now, with firelight flickering on clay cups and steam tracing sleepy circles through the air. You finish your drink and stretch your legs again. The jebena is nearly empty, but there's enough left for a final pour. The sun still hasn't shown its face, though the sky has shifted from lavender to a pale, cautious gold. You tilt your head. 1 bird, then 2. Then the whole tree above you bursts into a chorus that clearly skipped rehearsal. You making more? Darwit asks, eyeing the nearly empty pot like it insulted his mother. You shrug. You making any? He considers this, then sighs. Fine, but I get to use the good mortar this time. You mean my mortar? Yes, he says, already standing. That one. You hand him the last scoop of roasted beans and the polished upper stone. He takes them with exaggerated reverence, like he's holding a royal relic. As he starts grinding, his rhythm quicker and a little louder than yours, you notice a few more figures emerging from nearby huts. A young woman carrying a small bundle of herbs, a boy with a woven mat under his arm, a very old man walking with a stick that might be older than both of you combined. He doesn't say a word, he just sits by the fire, closes his eyes and inhales. Everyone knows the smell of brewing coffee, but the smell of grinding? That's a whole different memory. Sharp, dry, slightly dusty. The promise of something coming but not yet here. It's the smell of patience, of waiting well. Darwit hums while he works. You don't recognize the tune this time. It sounds older, slower. You think it might be one of those songs that doesn't even have lyrics anymore, just sounds passed down through mouths and stones and hands. You grab the second clay pot, the backup, jebena, a little smaller, a little less elegant, and begin preparing the next batch. Fresh water, warm coals. You rub the outside of the pot with an oiled cloth. Not because it changes the flavor, but because it feels like the right thing to do, like combing your hair before a big event. By now the sky is lighter. Not bright, not yet. But you can see your breath less. You can see your hands clearly. You can see the path leading from your door down toward the terraced farms where someone's already started preparing the day's work. You're not ready for that yet. You're still here. The second batch of coffee brews slowly. The first jebena rests empty nearby, cooling like a story that's been told and set aside. You glance at it fondly. It did its job. As the new pot bubbles softly, Dawit passes you the fresh grounds, and you swirl them in with care. A few flecks float near the top, then sink slowly, like lazy thoughts drifting off to sleep. This time, when the coffee's ready, you don't pour first. You let the old man have the first cup. He doesn't thank you, not verbally, but he nods once, with the kind of gravity that says, "You've done something worthwhile today." You try to nod back with equal dignity, but it probably looks more like a sheep shrugging in a dust storm. It doesn't matter. You pour a cup for Dawit, one for yourself, and one for the next curious soul who wanders into the warmth. You sit again, sip again. This is what morning was always meant to be. The second cup of the morning rests in your hand, cooler now, easier to hold without that eager burn against your palms. You sip slower this time. The rush of the first brew has passed. The novelty has worn off. What's left is deeper, quieter. There's a reason they say the second cup is for reflection. You lean back slightly against the hut's outer wall, its surface still cool from the long night. The old man has dozed off beside the fire, his cup resting empty beside him, his chin tucked against his chest. You don't wake him. No one does. The village has an unspoken rule. If someone sleeps after coffee, they've earned it. The others nearby are speaking softly now, their voices like birdsong carried on smoke. You hear the gentle rattle of dried herbs being unwrapped, the crisp snap of sticks added to a new fire, the musical clinking of pottery stacked for washing. Life is happening, but it's not hurrying. That comes later. You glance at the jebena again, still warm, still half full, and then you let your eyes wander farther, beyond the fire, beyond the hut, to the hills that surround the village like guardians. The mountains look older than everything. They catch the light differently up here. Gold spills across them now in soft, angled lines, and for just a second, it feels like the whole world is holding its breath. You take another sip. The flavor has changed slightly since earlier, maybe because the grounds have settled, maybe because your tongue is no longer desperate for heat. Maybe it's your mind that's shifted, not the drink. Historians still argue whether the traditional bunna ceremony was always multi-staged like this. First cup for awakening, second for sharing, third for contemplation. But the pattern exists, and the pattern works. Across from you, Mesere finally emerges from her hut. She moves slowly but deliberately, her head wrapped tightly in a faded blue scarf, her hands clutching a bundle of long-stemmed grasses. She nods at you, then at the fire, and you nod back. That's the equivalent of a good morning in this village. No one says, "How did you sleep?" Because frankly, no one expects a good answer. She eases herself onto a stool and begins spreading the grasses in neat bundles. Some kind of weaving project? You don't ask. She wouldn't tell you anyway. Instead, you pour her a cup and set it beside her work. She doesn't thank you, but her eyes flick toward yours for a second longer than usual, and that's enough. Then just as quickly, she's back to her grasses. The cup you're holding now, the one for yourself, is almost empty, but you don't refill it yet. Instead, you let your fingers trace the rim slowly. You think about the hands that shape this cup, smoothed its edges, fired it in a pit kiln made of packed earth and patient flame. You think about how it's probably older than your youngest cousin, maybe even older than you, which is saying something. You set it down carefully and stretch, your spine popping in 3 different spots like some ancient door being unlocked. You stand for a moment, looking around at the scattered pockets of life now fully unfolding across the village. There's a rhythm here, not scheduled, not synchronized, just shared. No one announces what time breakfast is. No one rings a bell for chores. Things just begin, gently. The dog is back, sitting by Dawit now, who is poking the embers like a man trying to negotiate a better deal with the fire gods. You walk over and nudge him with your foot. "Third cup?" you ask. He squints at you. "Only if we're reflecting deeply this time." You nod solemnly. "I've prepared an entire speech about goats and moral relativism." "Perfect," he says. "I'll need that." You refill the jebena with the last of the water and stir in a second round of grounds. The brew will be weaker now, everyone knows that, but that's part of the point. The third cup isn't about flavor, it's about finish, about closing the circle, letting the day arrive at its own pace. The coffee will be thinner, yes, but softer too, like a lullaby instead of a trumpet. While the new batch simmers, you glance back toward the mountains. The sun has finally crested the far ridge. Its light spills across the upper fields, turning the dew into silver threads that glisten and vanish. The shadows shrink back toward the trees. A few birds flit from branch to branch. Somewhere down the slope, someone has begun singing, loud, clear, and off-key in the most charming way imaginable. You can hear Messeret humming quietly now, a low, tuneless melody that might be ancient or might just be improvised. Her fingers weave the grasses like she's reading a story through them. Each thread pulled tight, each fold deliberate. Dawit, meanwhile, has started waxing philosophical. "You ever wonder," he says, "why we never let the third cup be the first cup?" You snort. "Because if we started mellow, we'd fall asleep before the fire started." He shrugs. "Maybe sleep's underrated. You pass him the third cup, the weakest, the calmest, the one meant for sitting with." He takes it in both hands, leans back against the tree stump, and exhales. "No rue this time," he notes. You grin. "Just smoke and dreams." The third cup is still hot, though it doesn't bite like the first. It slides over your tongue like silk. There's a hint of something sweet in it now, though you didn't add anything. Just the natural shift of the grounds, the lingering oils, or maybe it's the warmth of the company. You sit, you sip, you listen, and for a little while, there is no world outside this moment. By now, the coffee has settled into your bones, and the fire is a warm hum at your feet. You rest the empty third cup beside a rock and brush your palms across your legs, wiping off imaginary dust. The village is fully awake, but no one's in a rush. That's the thing about mornings here. They stretch like cats in the sun, unbothered by clocks or expectations. You rise slowly and stretch your arms overhead until your spine groans in gratitude. Beside you, Dawit mimics the gesture, but less gracefully. He winces, then chuckles. "Maybe we shouldn't sit so long," he mutters. You shrug. Maybe the ground should be softer. Behind you, someone approaches, soft footsteps crunching over dry earth. It's a girl, maybe 10 years old, balancing a tiny jebena on a tray made of woven reeds. She walks like it's a crown, with absolute seriousness. She stops at Meseret's side and waits. Meseret doesn't look up. "For your mother?" The girl nods. "Did she say thank you?" Another nod. Messeret hands the girl a small bundle of dried twigs, aromatic ones, the kind that crackle and sing in the fire. The girl tucks them into her sash and carefully walks away, never once wobbling the tray. You watch her go, that's how it begins. Before you brew your own, you carry someone else's. You smell the beans roasting before you're trusted to stir them. You learn the difference between just warm and ruined by accident. It's an apprenticeship as old as the hills, no written manuals, just burned fingers and 2-week batches until one day someone says, "This is good." And that's how you know you're ready. You sit back down near the ashes of the first fire, still warm, still glowing faintly beneath the grey crust. Dawit tosses in a few more twigs from the pile the girl left behind. The flame sparks up lazily, like it's considering another nap. "You remember your first solo brew?" he asks. You nod. "Burned the beans, forgot the water, still tried to serve it." He laughed. "What happened?" "Messeret drank it anyway, said it tasted like regret." He snorts. High praise. The smoke rises in soft spirals now, curling toward the tree canopy. And in that silence, as the embers settle and the third cup fades into memory, you start to notice something else. The air feels lighter, like the weight of night has finally lifted, like the day is finally real. You reach for the bowl of spent grounds sitting beside the fire. They're clumped together now, cold and dark. No one throws them out casually. That's not the way. Some bury them at the base of fig trees. Others toss them near the granary, an offering, some say, or a ward against pests. Dawit claims the goats hate them, which you suspect is another baseless goat rumor. You scoop a handful and walk to the base of the old tree near the edge of the clearing. Its bark is rough, its roots thick and knotted like old knuckles. You scatter the grounds gently into the hollow between roots. A quiet thank you. Not dramatic, not ritualized, just done. As you walk back, you hear someone call your name, softly, like a question. It's a boy from 2 huts over, holding a small clay cup, looking hopeful. You nod. There's still a bit left. He grins and jogs over carefully. You pour the last bit from the jebena, a small cup's worth, light and cloudy. But he doesn't mind. It's not about the strength. It's about the gesture. He sips, his face lighting up as he tastes the heat and smoke and something vaguely herbal. "Is this cinnamon?" he asks. "No," you say. "It's something." Historians still argue about what ancient Ethiopians added to their coffee. Some say it was purely for flavor, cardamom, ginger, rue. Others insist it had spiritual meaning, protection, healing, communication with the ancestors. You suspect it's a bit of both. A tradition becomes sacred because it's comforting. A habit becomes a ritual because enough people whisper meaning into it. The boy thanks you and walks away, cupping his drink like it holds the sunrise. The fire is almost gone now. The heat has dropped, the glow dimmed. You brush off your hands and begin gathering the empty cups. A quiet task, slow. You don't stack them. You place them gently, one by one, into the wide, low basket used for carrying pottery. You tie a strip of cloth around the top to hold them in place, and with a sigh that feels like a full stop, you stand. Dawit stretches one last time and waves. "Back to the fields?" he asks. "Soon," you reply. "Good," he says. "Don't want the goats getting smug." You snort as he disappears around the hut, whistling for a donkey that's currently refusing to acknowledge him. You look around. Smoke hangs low in the air. The sky is properly blue now, no longer playing coy. The last stars are long gone and the sun is fully awake. And so are you. But not in the harsh alarm clock way. In the slow, rooted way. The kind that starts with a fire and a friend and a cup. The kind of awake that feels like belonging. You pick up the basket and head back toward your hut. Not because you're done with the morning, but because the morning is done with you. And that too is part of the rhythm. You step back into your hut, ducking slightly as you cross the low threshold. Inside, the air still smells faintly of smoke and roasted coffee. Your feet make almost no sound against the packed earth floor. The light slipping through the roof slats is stronger now, long beams of soft gold cutting across the room like quiet reminders that the day has fully begun. You set the basket of empty cups beside a flat stone shelf next to a folded cloth and a few wildflower bundles that have dried into crinkled whispers of colour. There's no hurry to clean them yet. That's an afternoon job when the sun's higher and everyone's pretending not to nap. For now, you just breathe. The fire outside has faded into ash. The embers glow, yes, but they're slower now, gentle, content. You kneel down one last time to stir them, not because they need it, but because it's what your hands remember. There's something reassuring in the ritual, in the tiny acts of care that bookend a morning, like brushing hair, or tying sandals, or setting down a bowl just so. You sit back, legs crossed, hands resting on your knees. The morning has passed you through its sequence: wake, walk, roast, pour, sip, share. Each part threaded to the next like beads on a cord. And now you are in the quiet that comes after. Your mind drifts to the first time someone told you the origin story, the real one, or one version of it at least. A young boy, a hillside, goats dancing wildly after eating mysterious red berries. The herder confused, intrigued, maybe even a little alarmed. He plucks a few, tries them himself, and suddenly the world shifts. His feet feel lighter, his heart beats quicker. He doesn't sleep that night, not out of fear, but from wonder. He takes the berries to a nearby monastery. The monks try them. At first, they're suspicious, then delighted. Coffee becomes a tool for prayer, for contemplation, for focus. Or so the story goes. You've heard a dozen variations. Some end with the monks throwing the berries into the fire in disgust, only to be seduced by the smell as they roast. Others claim the goat herd never existed at all. That coffee wasn't discovered but remembered, reclaimed. Some say it was the women of the highlands who first brewed it, using it to soothe children and stay awake for long evenings of weaving and storytelling. Historians still argue. Of course they do. You think maybe they miss the point. Because regardless of who found it first, or why or how, it found you. And it finds you still every morning, in the husk of the bean, in the soot on your fingertips, in the pause between sips, in the heat shared between palms. A soft knock at your door pulls you from your thoughts. You glance up, expecting maybe a neighbor or one of the children asking for help with something only slightly urgent. But it's someone else. She stands there quietly, a small cup in her hands. Younger than you, maybe 17. Her headscarf is too big for her, slipping down one side. She doesn't say anything at first. She just holds out the cup. You recognize it. Not one of yours, one of hers. You nod, take the cup, and pour the last of your own brew. Just a little, still warm enough to offer. She takes it with both hands, cups it like something delicate. Then she sits beside you on the threshold, her feet dusty, her eyes soft. "This is my second solo brew," she says quietly. "The first one was Bad, you chuckle. That's required, she sips carefully. I use too much fire. You nod. Most people do. She watches the steam curl upward and disappear into the morning. I didn't think it would be so slow. It's always slow, you reply. Fast coffee isn't worth the cup. She smiles, doesn't speak again. You sit together for a while, not needing conversation. The shared cup says everything. Her second brew will be better. Her third, even more so. One day, someone will sit on her threshold, unsure and quiet, holding a too light cup with too dark beans, and she'll pour for them. And the cycle will go on. That's how it works. No one writes it down. No one explains the rules. But the knowledge seeps through the hands, through the cups, through the smoke. It travels like memory, slow, deep, impossible to pin down. Eventually she rises and thanks you, not with words, but with a glance and a nod. Then she's gone, cup in hand, walking back through the village with a new kind of rhythm in her step. You watch her go and something in your chest settles. The morning's not over, not quite. But it's quiet now, finished in spirit, wrapped in heat and silence. There are tools to clean, embers to sweep, paths to walk. But those can wait. You reach for the last sip in your own cup, now lukewarm, a little dusty, but still perfect. You drink it down, you close your eyes, and for a moment the world is still. You rise from the doorway slowly, like waking a sleeping dog, cautious, careful not to disturb what little calm remains before the true heat of day arrives. Your knees creak in protest, a sound you now associate not with age, but with the morning's completion. The kind of creak that says, "Well done, we survived another dawn." Stepping outside, you feel the sun for the first time. Not just its light, but its heat, gently warming your shoulders. The air has shifted. What was once cool and damp is now crisp and alive. Chickens peck near the fire pit, emboldened now that the humans have finished their strange smoke drink rituals. A goat sneezes dramatically in the background, either allergic to sunlight or seeking attention. It's hard to tell with goats. You stretch, arch your back until it pops once, twice, and glance at the sky. No clouds, not today. The blue above is wide open like a canvas waiting for whatever comes next. Work, play, gossip, chores. Maybe all of it. But you haven't moved toward any of it yet, not quite. Instead, you gather up the used ashes from your fire. They're fine and cool now, grey as old paper, clumping lightly between your fingers. You take the small clay bowl meant for this task, shallow, cracked from years of use, and carry the ashes to the base of a nearby bush. It's tradition to scatter them there near the thick green stalks of what the elders call the listening tree. Why that name? No one agrees. Some say it's because the tree's leaves rustle louder than others when secrets are told nearby. Others say the wind sounds different in its branches. Still others claim that if you sleep beneath it, you dream of people long gone. Historians, if they even know about this tiny, unassuming bush tucked behind a goat shed, would almost certainly argue whether it's folklore or function. You suspect it's just a nice place to sit. You scatter the ashes at its base, slowly, respectfully, like putting a period at the end of a very good sentence. Behind you, the village is now fully awake. You hear the scrape of grain being poured into a grinding bowl, a boy calling for his sister, the distant bark of a dog that has very strong opinions about a passing bird, and, somewhere, faintly, the clink of another jebena being set down. That sound never gets old. You walk back toward your hut, stopping halfway to pick up the large mortar and pestle left near the side wall. The smell of roasted coffee still clings to the stone, nutty, deep, a little smoky. You run your hand over it, fingers tracing the smooth dip worn into the surface from years of grinding. The groove is deeper than it used to be. That's how you know it's yours. It's odd how these simple tools hold so much story. You could tell someone your entire morning just by pointing at the items. The basket still holding a few dried cherries, the spent coals under the cooking tripod, the stone you sat on as the sun rose. Every item has a role. Every item knows its place. You set the mortar under the thatched awning beside your hut and cover it with a cloth. Tomorrow you'll wipe it clean, but not now. Now is still for quiet. Now is still part of the coffee. There's a lull, one of those rare pauses in the village's rhythm where nothing urgent is happening, and the sun hasn't begun to shout yet. You find your spot under the awning, lean your back against the cool clay wall and let your legs stretch out across the dirt. You're not the only one doing it. Across the way, another neighbor does the same, their eyes half closed, their hand lazily fanning, flies away. Someone else leans against a tree, chewing thoughtfully on a sprig of fennel. This is the unscheduled break, the one no one announces but everyone honors, the in-between. You close your eyes for just a moment and let your thoughts drift, not forward, into the to-do list of the day, but backward into the morning you've just lived. You remember the sound of beans popping on the clay plate, the smell of roux curling in the steam, the hiss of boiling water as you pulled the jebena from the fire. You remember Dawit's sarcasm, Messeret's silence, the girl with the slightly too big scarf. All of it is woven into the space behind your eyelids, like threads in a tapestry you didn't know you were weaving. This is what history feels like, not battles or kings or dusty scrolls, but this, a moment passed from hand to hand, quiet, repetitive, shared, alive. You open your eyes, a rooster struts by as if he owns the entire village. You make a face at him. He ignores you as roosters do. The spell is broken, gently. It's time to move, but you'll move slowly. You'll rise not like a soldier at the bugle, but like someone who's lived through a good story and wants to linger on the last page a little longer. You roll your shoulders, flex your fingers, and rise to your feet. The sun greets you fully now, warming your skin like a blessing. The third cup may be finished, but its warmth lingers, not just in your chest, but in your pace, your breath, your gaze. The village moves around you, not ahead, not behind, with you. You begin walking toward the field, the goats, the day. But the coffee stays with you. The path toward the fields winds gently down the slope, pressed smooth by countless feet and hooves. Your sandals stir small clouds of dust as you go, the sun now resting full and golden on your shoulders. Around you the day hums, not loudly, not yet, but with that gentle insistence that everything has begun. You walk slowly, not because you're tired, but because the morning lingers in your limbs like warmth in a stone. You pass the granary, its walls plastered with red clay and straw, its roof a patchwork of thatch that looks like it's held together more by luck than engineering. Still it stood for decades. A woman inside it hums as she measures grain, her voice lifting and dropping like a lullaby only she needs to hear. You nod in her direction, she nods back. No words, just rhythm. As you continue, the terraced plots open up before you, wide and sunlit. These are not modern fields, no machinery, no fences, just dark earth, carved into shelves along the hill, each one framed with stones and thick with life. Green things everywhere, maize, sorghum, teff. And coffee, of course, always coffee. You pause near the edge of one terrace and crouch down, your fingers brushing through a row of sprouting coffee shrubs. Their leaves are glossy and tight, still young, still whispering the kind of secrets only plants know. You remember planting them months ago, your fingers muddy, your back aching, your mouth tasting of sweat and roasted beans. The memory makes you smile. These plants are still a year away from producing cherries, but that's the way of it. Slow, patient. Coffee doesn't rush. It grows when it's ready, not when you are. You pat the soil gently like checking a sleeping child's forehead and stand again. Nearby, an older man is already hoeing at the next terrace, his pace steady, his breath loud. He glances up and raises a hand. "Late morning," he calls out, teasing. You grin. Only if you skip the third cup. He laughs, his teeth flashing bright in the sun. Then I've been late for 20 years. You walk the rest of the way toward your plot, a small patch of land with a view of the distant river glinting between trees. The water's too far to hear, but you like knowing it's there. A steady presence, like the mountain, like the fire pit, like Meseret. You set down your tools beside a low stone and squat to pull weeds, soft green things that twist up among your stalks like they belong. They don't. But you remove them gently anyway. No anger, no rush, just the simple, meditative rhythm of pulling, clearing, breathing. As you work, your mind drifts again. You remember stories told over morning coffee. The one about the time lightning struck the village's only beehive, or the one where a boy claimed he heard the coffee plants whisper his name, and then grew up to be a priest. There was even a tale about a woman who brewed a cup so perfect it made a blind man see again. You don't believe that one? Probably. But then again, maybe he just needed caffeine. Historians, again, would ask for evidence, for documentation, for proof. But coffee doesn't care about that. It lives in steam, in smoke, in the half-said phrases shared around the fire. In the kind of knowing passed down not through books, but by the way someone stirs the pot, or hums as they grind. You pause for a moment, sitting back on your heels, wiping your hands on your tunic. The sun is high now, but the breeze still carries coolness from the trees. A group of children run past on the path, chasing something, a ball or a chicken or each other. It's hard to tell. You smile and wave. One of them waves back with both hands, then trips and goes flying. He pops up a second later, laughing like a lunatic. Crisis averted. From here, you can see the cluster of huts below, smoke rising, people moving, donkeys standing in stubborn silence. And above that, the mountain, watching, always watching. Some mornings it glows, other days it disappears into cloud, but it's always there. You take a sip from the water pouch tied at your side, not coffee, just cool, clear water. But for a moment, the way you tilt your head, the way you exhale after swallowing, it feels the same. You return to weeding, then digging, then clearing stones. Your hands ache, your shoulders begin to complain, but it's a familiar ache. The kind you've earned, the kind that means you started the day right. With fire, with friends, with a third cup. Eventually, when the sun reaches its high point and the air grows still and hot, you gather your tools again. You stand and wipe the back of your neck, then look up toward the village. Time to head back. Time for midday rest, for a bit of food, maybe a nap if the goats allow it. Maybe. As you walk the path home, you notice something curious. A single coffee cherry has fallen to the ground, red and ripe ahead of season. You bend down and pick it up. It's perfect, plump, shiny, and warm from the sun. You hold it in your palm for a long moment. You could eat it, some do, but instead you turn and tuck it gently into a pocket next to your pouch of herbs. A gift. Or maybe a reminder. You climb the path back home slowly, each step rhythmic, your breath steady, your mind still swimming slightly in the calm haze of the morning. No one speaks as you pass, no one needs to. They all saw the fire, they smelled the brew, and they know today began the right way. By the time you reach your hut again, the village has settled into its midday quiet, the kind that blankets everything in soft stillness, even if the chores continue in the background. No bells chime, no schedules dictate this pause, yet everyone obeys. The light is sharp now, bouncing off clay and stone, casting short, stubborn shadows that cluster beneath rooftops and tree trunks like creatures avoiding the sun. You duck back inside, the cool darkness welcoming after your time in the field. The hut holds on to the morning's memory, the scent of coffee still faintly woven into the walls, the ashes in the hearth barely warm, the empty cups on the shelf waiting to be cleaned later. Eventually. You remove the pouch from your sash and place the lone coffee cherry onto the flat table by the window slit. It catches the light like a gem. You don't speak to it, you're not dramatic like that, but you acknowledge it with a nod. It deserves that much. You settle onto a low mat, stretch your legs out in front of you, and lean back against the wall. The clay is cool, the texture familiar, like leaning against an old friend who never interrupts. For a moment, you allow yourself to simply be. No task, no plan, no list of what comes next. Just breath and breeze and the faint rustling of dry grass against the outside wall. Outside, someone plays a flute, badly, you think, though it could also be a child experimenting. The melody is wandering and hesitant, like it doesn't know where it's going yet. You smile and close your eyes. And then it returns. The flavor. Not on your tongue this time, but in your memory. You taste it again, faint but vivid. The first sip of the morning brew. The smoke, the bite. The quiet heat that filled your chest like a lantern, lighting from the inside. It comes back not because you're craving it, but because it's become part of you. Like a song that lingers in your head long after the music stops. It reminds you of your grandfather. You remember him squatting at a fire just like yours, blowing gently across the top of a steaming clay cup. Always the first to rise, always the last to speak. You were small then, too small to be trusted with pouring, but old enough to be handed the spent grounds to scatter by the listening tree. You did it seriously, as if your hands were responsible for keeping the entire village in balance. You wonder now if someone watched you this morning with the same eyes you once watched him with. You wonder if they'll remember the way your fire crackled, the way you poured the first cup, the way you sat in silence while the world shifted from sleep to wakefulness. You open your eyes again and see a sliver of sky through the roof slats. A bird flits across it, gone in a blink. Outside, footsteps pass your door, light and quick. Someone young, maybe chasing a sibling, maybe just chasing the wind. You sit up and reach for a small bundle of herbs hanging from a hook. Dried rue, still pungent, still sharp. You crumble a few leaves between your palms and toss them into the hearth. They land on the warm ash and release a faint, spicy scent, that snakes through the room. It doesn't do much practically, but it feels good, like closing a chapter. You rise again, slowly, and gather the clay cups. You carry them outside to the small washing basin you share with your neighbors, already filled with cool water from the morning draw. You crouch and begin to clean them, dipping and swirling, using a cloth worn soft by use. One by one, you rinse the memory from their surfaces, but only the physical memory. The real part, the part that matters, stays behind. Someone joins you after a moment. An older girl with a quiet demeanor and sleeves rolled to the elbow. She doesn't speak. She just begins helping. The two of you clean in rhythm side by side, a kind of silent duet. The water sloshes softly. The cups knock gently against each other like old friends catching up. It's simple. It's enough. As you rinse the final cup, the girl glances at you. "Tomorrow," she says. "I want to try roasting myself." You raise an eyebrow. "You've never roasted before?" She shakes her head. "Only watched." You think for a moment, then nod. "Come early. I'll heat the clay." She grins, and in that grin you see the beginning of her own coffee story. The first fire she'll tend. The first cup she'll pour. The first time she'll sit back and know the morning is hers. The afternoon light begins to shift again, sharper now, more golden, hinting that time is moving forward. But you feel no urgency. You rinse your hands, dry them on your tunic, and stretch once more. Behind you, the village breathes, fires die down, children nap in shadows. Old songs rise and fall in the distance. You turn toward your hut, the warmth of clean clay in your hands, and think, not for the first time, that you're part of something older than memory. Something warm, something brewed. The rest of the day unfolds the way it always does, slowly, then all at once. You've washed the cups, tidied the hearth, and even stretched your legs with a walk through the far edge of the field. But now the sun begins to lower in the sky, casting long, dramatic shadows across the village like nature's way of reminding everyone to wrap things up. You sit on the edge of your hut again, this time not with coffee, but with a gourd of cool water in your lap and a light ache in your knees. It's a familiar ache, a productive one, the kind you don't complain about because it tells you you lived this day properly. From nearby, the faint rhythm of pestles rises again, wood striking stone as someone pounds dried grain into flour. You hear the swish of brooms made from stiff grass being swept across earth floors. Laughter floats by, followed closely by a toddler wearing only one sandal and far too much confidence. His mother chases him with practiced exasperation. You take another sip of water and lean back against the hut wall, eyes half closed. The breeze has changed direction now, blowing downhill and bringing with it the scent of distant cooking fires, spices, wood smoke, roasted maize, a bit of garlic, and faintly, almost teasingly, the ghost of roasted coffee beans from someone else's hut. Not yours this time. You smile. You remember when you were younger, you used to think coffee was just a morning thing, something to shake you awake and get the day started. But the older you got, the more you realized it was never really about the drink. It was about the time, the space around it, the slow moments that cradle the faster ones. Historians still argue over whether the ancient coffee rituals were sacred or social, spiritual or merely routine. But you know better now. You know it's both. It always has been. From the doorway beside you, Messeret appears again, arms folded, watching the sky darken. She doesn't say much, never does, but when she nods at you, there's weight to it. Her nods are like punctuation marks. This one says, You did well this morning. You return the gesture, small and respectful. She vanishes back inside. Behind you, someone is building a new fire. You hear the soft clatter of kindling, the puff of breath, the patient crackle of flame. No coffee this time, just food. Still, the rhythm is the same. Fire, patience, waiting. Everything begins with waiting. A few children gather near the center of the village and begin telling stories, exaggerated and animated. One swears she saw a lion in the mountains. Another says her cousin once brewed coffee so strong it made her uncle sing for an entire afternoon. The others gasp, giggle, and argue over who gets to tell the next story. You close your eyes and let their voices blend into the breeze. You don't need to hear every word. The tone is enough. The laughter, the teasing, the comfort of knowing that the day is winding down in all the right ways. And then, just when you think the coffee's done for the day, you hear it. A familiar glug 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 from a jebena being poured. You smile again. Evening coffee. Of course. Someone always makes another round. Maybe for visitors. Maybe for those who work late. And maybe just because the pot was there, and it felt wrong for it to go cold without purpose. You breathe in deeply, half hoping the breeze will carry the scent toward you. It doesn't. That's okay, because right now you don't need the cup. You've already had the morning's best, the quietest, the first and the third. Still, the idea of that evening cup comforts you. Somewhere, a neighbor leans back with her own steaming sip. Somewhere, a tired father pours a half-full cup while the children chatter around his knees. Somewhere, an elder dips bread into the last dregs of a brew made without herbs, without smoke, just beans and water and memory. You shift on your mat and glance at the sky. The clouds are pink now, edged with fire. The kind of sunset that turns everything golden, faces, rooftops, even the goats look cinematic. You know the stars are coming. Soon, the night will blanket the village in quiet. Fires will dim. Conversations will soften. Doors will close. But not all the way, because someone will leave their fire to smolder, just a little, just in case, just for the warmth. You gather your water gourd and stand slowly, letting the moment stretch. One of the children spots you and grins. Are you making more coffee tomorrow? You nod. Are you bringing the wood? She nods back, already planning which twigs she'll gather before dawn. That's how it continues, cup by cup, fire by fire. One sleepy question at a time. You step inside your hut, the air still warm, still sweet with the scent of herbs and stories. You set the gourd down and light a single lamp, its flame flickering softly against the wall. You sit one last time, just beside your hearth, and look around. Everything is in its place. The cups, the jebena, the spent ashes ready for tomorrow. And in the quiet, beneath the hush of twilight, you whisper something, not quite a prayer, not quite a thought. Just thanks. Thanks for the coffee. Thanks for the quiet. Thanks for the rhythm. Night settles over the highlands, not with a bang, but with a long sigh. 1 minute, the sky is bruised lavender. The next, it's ink. Stars appear like forgotten seeds scattered across a dark field, blinking shyly at first, then boldly. The moon rises slowly, silver and round, casting pale light across the rooftops like a second fire that asks for nothing in return. Inside your hut, the shadows shift. Your oil lamp flickers softly, its flame swaying with every draft. You're not tired, not yet. There's something about a good morning that makes the day stretch slower, even as it ends. You sit cross-legged near the wall, running your thumb along the rim of your favorite clay cup. It's cool now, just a vessel, but it still carries the memory of heat. Outside, the village sings its own lullaby. You hear footsteps soft against dirt, the murmur of last words exchanged across doorways. A dog barks once, then thinks better of it. A mother hushes a baby, her voice almost a melody. You lean your head against the wall and close your eyes for a moment, not to sleep, but just to listen. Then a knock, barely there. A polite tap against your doorframe, like a question whispered into wind. You open your eyes and smile. It's Dawit. He doesn't enter right away. He never assumes. He stands there, holding something wrapped in cloth. "Trade?" he says. You laugh under your breath. "Depends what you're offering." He steps forward and reveals a small, heavy bundle, roasted beans, still warm, still fragrant, a peace offering, or maybe a bribe. "In case tomorrow's morning fire starts late," he says. You nod and gesture for him to sit. No formalities needed. He lowers himself onto the floor with a grunt and sets the beans between you. For a moment, neither of you speaks. The silence isn't awkward. It's earned. You both stare at the lamp, at the dancing flame, and something about the flickering light makes it easier to say things without having to say them directly. "I remember," he says quietly, "when you first brewed for me." You chuckle. Burned the beans. Overfilled the jebena. Spilled the first pour. He grins. "Still better than Meseret's when she was young." "Don't let her hear you say that," you murmur. She has good aim with a hot cup. The flame crackles softly as if in agreement. You sit like that for a while, two people with nothing urgent to do, sharing the comfort of memory and the soft creaks of a village settling into sleep. Occasionally, Dawit leans forward to adjust the lamp wick. Occasionally, you lean back to stretch your shoulders, but mostly you just are. Then he breaks the quiet again. "You think coffee remembers us?" You look at him. He shrugs. "Not like literally. I mean, does it hold on to who we were when we made it?" You think about it. About how the first cup of the morning feels different from the last. About how the same beans taste different in different hands. About how Messeret's brews are always more bitter, how yours are smoother, how the girl with the too big scarf had a first brew that somehow smelled like spring rain and impatience. You nod. Maybe. Maybe not like a memory, but maybe it keeps the shape of us. He seems satisfied with that. The lamp begins to dim. Dawit stands, slow and deliberate. "See you at sunrise?" You nod. "Bring dry wood," he grins. "Always." He leaves without another word, and the cloth-wrapped bundle of beans stays behind. You lift it gently, breathe in the scent, and then tuck it beside your mat. Tomorrow's work. Tomorrow's gift. You extinguish the lamp with a practiced pinch, and darkness folds in like a blanket. But not an empty darkness, a full one, rich, deep, the kind that hums beneath your skin and tells you you are right where you're meant to be. The stars outside continue blinking, the embers in the hearth whisper their final words, and you, wrapped in the quiet rhythm of a well-lived day, ease yourself onto your mat and pull the woven blanket to your chin. Your last thought before sleep? That somewhere in the ashes the morning is already waiting. You don't remember falling asleep. That's the best kind of rest, the kind that sneaks up behind you like a friend and wraps you in warmth before you even think to resist. The night passed without interruption. No shouting goats, no restless winds, just the steady breath of the mountains and the silent song of stars blinking their quiet approval overhead. Now, before the sun even peeks over the ridges, your eyes open again. The darkness inside the hut is soft, not sharp, the kind of darkness that feels like a memory rather than an absence. You lie still for a moment, listening. A rooster far off, a whisper of wind against the thatch, and footsteps, slow, deliberate, someone walking towards your door. You sit up and reach for your shawl, pulling it over your shoulders. The air is cold again, just like yesterday, just like always. You don't even need to check, it's still there. The cloth-wrapped bundle of roasted beans from Darwit. It kept quiet all night, curled in the corner like a secret. A soft knock. You stand and open the door. It's the girl. She's holding a tiny bundle of firewood, arms wrapped around it protectively like a baby bird. Her eyes are wide with that familiar mixture of nerves and determination. The look every first-time brewer wears like a badge. You nod, step aside, and gesture to the fire pit. She enters without speaking. She knows what this is. You kneel together beside the ashes, still warm from yesterday, still waiting. You let her do the work. She lays the twigs carefully, blows softly, coaxes the fire to life like a lullaby, in reverse. Flame, spark, glow. You unwrap the beans and hand her a few. She holds them like they might break. You show her how to scatter them over the flat clay pan and nudge the edge into the fire. The scent comes quickly, familiar but new in her hands. She stirs them with slow, reverent movements. No rush, no panic. You watch, remembering. The fire reflects in her eyes. "Do I grind them now?" she asks. You nod. Not too fine, not too slow. She moves to the grinding stone. Hesitant at first, then steadier. Her shoulders find a rhythm. The soft scrape of roasted beans beneath stone joins the crackle of flame and the occasional trill of waking birds. You prepare the jebena, the water, the cloth, the cups, but only enough for two. This is her coffee. You just present. The grounds go in. The water follows. The fire accepts the pot like an old friend. You both lean in close, eyes fixed on the rising steam, noses twitching at the scent. "Do I pour some out?" she asks. You nod, always the first. She lifts the jebena, her hands steady, and drizzles a thin stream onto the earth outside the door. The steam rises into the cold air, curling upward like a prayer. She pours the first real cup for you. It's strong, uneven, a little smoky, but beautiful, alive. You sip. She watches you, eyebrows raised, shoulders tense. You nod, slow and approving. Good. She exhales and laughs, just once, a quiet puff of pride that fogs the air between you. Then she pours her own cup and sits beside you. The sky is still dark, but it doesn't feel like night anymore. "I couldn't sleep," she says, cupping the warm clay between her hands. "Good," you reply. She laughs again. Together you sit in silence, sipping the first fire of the day. Around you, the village still dreams. The embers crackle. The wind sighs. Somewhere, a goat considers screaming, but thinks better of it. You watch the girl watch the fire. You see the way she holds her cup, the way she exhales after each sip, the way her eyes linger on the sky, waiting for light. And you realize, this is not just your ritual anymore. You've passed it on. The rhythm continues. The sky softens by degrees, shifting from velvet black to deepest indigo, then to a bruised blue-grey that hints at dawn without quite committing to it. The fire flickers low now, its job nearly done, yet still breathing gently between the stones like it too is watching the morning unfold. You sit beside her, this girl with her second ever brew, your cup nearly empty, your hands still warm. She doesn't speak. You don't either. There's nothing left to explain. You've told her everything that matters without needing words. The rest she'll learn the way you did, through flame, through flavor, through the silence between sips. She takes one last drink and sets her cup down beside the hearth. Then she leans forward and touches the jebena gently, like it's something living. Maybe it is. Maybe they all are, in some quiet way. Every blackened clay pot, every well-worn mortar, every grinding stone grooved by hundreds of hands over hundreds of mornings. You reach for a bundle of spent grounds and rise, gesturing for her to follow. Together, you walk to the base of the listening tree. She knows what this part is, still you say nothing. It's more powerful that way. You tilt your hand and let the coffee grounds fall slowly onto the roots. She does the same. The earth accepts them without a sound. When you turn back, the village is beginning to wake again. That's the trick of this place. It wakes more than once. There's the quiet waking before the fire, when only the cold and the stars know you're alive. And then there's this, the shared waking, when shadows shift, huts glow from within, and people start to murmur names and stretch limbs. You return to the fire and begin the final ritual, cleaning. Not because it's urgent, not because it matters to anyone else, but because it's yours, because it's part of the rhythm. You rinse the jebena, letting water catch the lingering oils and send them into the earth. You turn the cups over in your palm, examining the way the light catches their curved rims. You place them on a cloth to dry in the sun that's almost here. The girl helps without asking. She knows where everything goes now. You watch her walk back to her hut, her braids swinging, her shoulders no longer stiff with uncertainty. Her cup still warm in her hands. Another fire crackles to life nearby, then another. Smoke curls skyward, delicate as thread. A goat calls out, half complaint, half announcement. Children stir. Doors creak open. Someone begins to sweep. The song of the village resumes. You sit one last time on your mat, cradling the final dregs of your cup. The coffee is lukewarm now, faint, like a memory. You sip it slowly, letting it stretch across your tongue, letting the moment stretch with it. Then quietly you rise and walk toward the edge of the village where the light hits the ground first. You face the mountain, now fully lit. The shadows are gone. The sky above it is wide open. The warmth on your face isn't from fire anymore. It's from the day. And though your cup is empty, you are full. Full of silence, full of steam, full of memory, full of morning. You close your eyes, and you breathe. So now as the sky settles into stillness and the fire cools beneath your feet, let yourself drift gently away from the waking world. You've brewed the morning's warmth. You've tended the embers. You've shared the first cup, the second, and the third. There's no rush now. Your breath slows. Your hands, once busy with grinding and pouring and careful ritual, are quiet, light. The taste of roasted beans still lingers faintly on your tongue, but it's softer now, more of a memory than a flavor. The sounds of the village, footsteps, laughter, firewood being gathered, all fade into the background, like a lullaby sung from another room. Let it all go. The cup is empty. The work is done. The first light of day no longer asks anything of you. And in this quiet space between fire and sleep, between story and silence, you are safe. You are still. Imagine the warmth of the last ember. Imagine the curl of smoke rising toward a star. Imagine the quiet hum of a jebena, cooling in the dark. You don't have to move, you don't have to think, just let yourself rest. Let the rhythm of the fire carry you. Let the scent of coffee guide you. Let the stillness wrap around you like a blanket stitched from all the mornings that came before. You're home. And now, sleep.